Welcome to the XYZ podcast. I'm millennial producer Tony. Joining me are our host, Gen X Brian.
Hello.
And Gen Z Winston.
What it do?
How's everybody doing tonight?
Cheers.
We're doing all right. We're chilling.
Good.
I hate the fact that I'm sober Sam for today, but I guess that's
good though. It is a weeknight. I've had 2 days off, so it kind of still feels like the weekend to me. So that's why I dove into a beverage, but not normally on the weeknights. But hey,
well, what are you drinking first of all?
This is just some bourbon. It is. It's that time of night. Do you guys know the concept of 11s? Have you ever heard the concept of 11s?
What is that?
I have, yes.
Okay, Tony has. Good. Yeah. So it's back in the day, our forefathers, they would retire. They would have 11s, which is like 11 o'clock in the afternoon. Tony might have to fact check me on everything, but they would get 11 o'clock in the afternoon and go around the pub and have some whiskey for 11s and like get the day's affairs in order and then continue on. So it was a break at like 11 o'clock in the morning.
Afternoon tea.
with
whiskey.
Yeah. But we're gonna have whiskey and we're gonna talk about our things because it was, that might be a little shaky, but I always found that completely hilarious. That was like something people that used to be socially acceptable to do. It's very much frowned upon to drink at 11 o'clock in the afternoon or before the afternoon, at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Well, I mean, you know what they say, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
So to be fair, it does seem to be a British thing.
Yeah.
Or an English thing.
Okay. Pip.
Not usually with booze. Usually, this is referring usually to like their tea break.
Oh, well, I would
coffee, maybe some crumpets or something.
I've bastardized the whole thing. I'm telling you, there's some link to whiskey out there somewhere.
You know what it is? It got freedomized. It's
freedomized.
It got freedomized, so we doing whiskey instead of tea. You know what happened the last time we tried to do stuff with tea? It ended up in the ocean.
That's true.
So hey, I wanted to jump off here. Like what it was like. We're getting into warmer weather here. And jump ahead of season. We're gonna jump ahead of season to summertime. But what was it like for each of you in the summertime growing up? You got a lot of bike riding, you got a lot of inside activities.
The answers to this one are going to be definitely different because Winston was in Vietnam growing up.
That is true. So my answer would be a little affected by it, but let's just let me hear what you did when you were a kid first, Ryan, and then I'll tell you what happened on my end there.
I am from the generation that everybody talks about of like where you would leave in the morning and you'd run around. Your parents just be home by dark, be home by dinner, be home by dark, whatever, and you'd roam the neighborhood wherever your bike or skateboard would take you. So like I fondly remember that because I lived in there were kids in my neighborhood and I had like my friends and there were places you can explore and stuff like that. Now I think of it, I'm like, there is no way I would let my children leave the house in the morning on a Saturday and make sure they were home by dinner time. That's long gone. And that's the times too, and it's unfortunate because that was great. But that I'm just talking about the ages up to like you said you left when you were 11. So
yeah. So I was going to say when I was growing up in Vietnam, my parents basically did the same thing to me. They were just like, hey, go do your thing. Just be home before dark. Even then, like at some point they stopped caring about the dark thing because it'll be like 8 o'clock at night. And then I would just show up and they'll be like, oh, you're back. You want dinner? And I'm just like, yeah. But like, it was weird. I guess it was like, because to be fair, like I didn't go far. Like all the kids that I hung out with was kind of, I wouldn't say they're neighborhood friends, but they're on the same block of house.
Right. Yeah. Neighborhood, adjacent streets and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So it was close enough for me to bike around, walk around and stuff, go eat and be home. And my parents wouldn't stress about it. But it was funny that, you brought that up because I remember my mom would be like, yeah, you can go hang out with your friends or whatever, but just make sure you don't cross the street down there. Like there's this one big street and she was like, don't ever cross that street. And I was like, all right, sounds good to me. I mean, I don't ever feel
that was the boundary. She drew your boundary line for
exactly
the other side of the tracks.
It's it's like when you play a game, there's like the invisible wall. It's like at the edge of the map. That's what it was. But yeah, so I would say like from the age of like 8 to like 11, 8 to 10 rather. 8 to 10, I was mostly just out and about with my friends. When I got to 11, my older brother gave me a PlayStation 3, and that's where I think my like value kind of aligned with the rest of Gen Z more. I'm like,
I'm staying inside and playing video games.
It's like it's the summertime, it's hot. I'll turn on the AC. I'll just sit in the room just playing video games instead. Why would I go out? So it got pretty bad. That's until like at one point my parents like, hey man, we bought you a new bike. Can you just like leave the house for once? And I was like,
so you were the first, I guess, that started sitting inside playing video games.
I guess so. But I mean, like, even then, it's hard to say because, like, if you look at kids nowadays, they're growing up. Like even Gen Z who are like younger to me, they grew up with stuff like iPhone and iPads already.
Yeah.
So they have more reason for them to stay indoor. I didn't have as much of a reason. Like, I mean, realistically, when I was growing up, we had smartphone, but it was like the buttons ones, which sucks. So
that stuff was that it was not designed to be addictive then.
Exactly.
It was functional. It was not designed to be addictive. But sidebar, the Tetris movie came out. Have you seen that? Have you seen that previews for that? The Tetris movie? Like it's the story about the guy who invented Tetris and how it got to America.
I saw a clip of it on TikTok, which is actually really good. And
super good.
The only reason why I know about this is funny. It's there's a K-pop band that actually did the OST for it. And I'm like, it's like the song is sampling the Tetris soundtrack, which I find it's like incredible.
Oh, okay. That's funny how we both came to that from different perspectives, but no, totally recommend watching the movie. I had no idea that story of how Tetris like came to America. It's amazing. Anyway, but you were talking about video games. I was thinking about that.
Yeah. No,
so you did not have. So my first video game was the Atari 2600. That was like when we got the Atari. That was the jam.
Mine is sitting above my TV right now. Well, technically, my dad's is sitting above my TV right now, but yes.
Well, what is it, Tony? The Atari 2, or is it
Atari 2600?
Oh,
with the cartridges, the OG one. That's when suddenly, that was you. Before that, you played video games in arcades, and this was essentially bringing the arcade into your house. But the games were fun, but they were just it was like stuff like Pac-Man and Asteroids and. Pitfall was probably a great one. That one Pitfall.
I don't even know what Pitfall is.
You just ran and jumped over pits and swung over alligators and tried not to fall in quicksand.
One of the original side scrollers.
Yeah.
It's just Temple Run. It's 2D Temple Run.
It is indeed. That's
now. Did you ever do the hack, Brian, of because I realized this playing it growing up again. It's much older than whenever it came out, but you can just start off going backwards.
Yes.
Made things a lot easier.
Yeah, we did that, but it I can't remember why we didn't always do that, but no, the one hack was bad. Okay, so jump ahead to the Nintendo. Contra was like the greatest game ever, and that was like the first game where you knew the code, the cheat code.
Contra code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was the Contra code? What was it? I don't remember.
Up, down, left, right, B, A, start, select.
There you go.
B, A, start? I thought it was A, B, start, select.
Something like
that. We haven't played in a while, but and that was genius. And this totally, listen to this, Winston. We could go to a Blockbuster video store where you rented videotapes, right? In the certain time, they carried video games too. So if you didn't have, I didn't own Contra, but we would rent it for like the weekend, and you would rent it like a movie. So you just sit there and be like, okay, we're playing this game. And then, Contra, then you have the cheat code, so you never die. So you're playing this thing until you try and defeat the final boss. And so that way, and that's what you would do, is it just became like this quest. And I think by then they were really starting to figure out how to keep people really enticed in video games, because I can tell you, playing Atari, I played all my games, loved all my games, had fun games, but there was like a finite end to them. After a while, you're like, okay, I want to go outside. I want to go jump. I want to go build a ramp and jump my bike.
There wasn't much. Yeah, the Atari cartridges was very much reminiscent of the arcade, whereas beat a high score.
Yeah.
And they were very repetitive. It wasn't until you got to the NES where it's like, oh, there's like a story and there's progression, and there was thought put into it where they wanted it to be easy to pick up, but difficult enough that it was going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, and then your drive was to beat the game. It was,
Yeah, like I mean, I never experienced that. Like my first like gaming console was a PlayStation 2. So like, but I'll tell you this: there was a game that I got with my PlayStation 2 that was sort of reminiscent of like what you guys were saying, like the arcade machine, where it was like there's no story. You would just try to get as much point as you can and try to beat the high score. I didn't understand that concept because I'm like, I bought a console. I want to play a game. I'm expecting a story, like I'm watching a movie. You know, and so I'm like, what the hell
enter
is
the game.
this?
You're like, damn it! I have a threshold of entertainment I expect.
Yeah, and like there's a timer that's countdown, and like I remember like putting together as much broken English as I could to Google how to get the timer off of it because I didn't understand anything. I'm like, I just want to keep playing the game, and there was nothing. But I'll say this, like it's so funny that you guys brought up cheats because like I think that was like one of the first thing I ever like did or I looked into when I started playing video games as a kid. It was like so my cousin was playing GTA San Andreas, and like at that time it was like, yeah, you gotta put the cheat in and get the jetpack and you can live forever or whatnot. So immediately every time I play a game, I immediately look up cheats and like and I would say this, like I think for a long time, every game had cheats in it. It was just something you expect, but like out of nowhere, it just stopped. And I remember like looking up games that I was playing at the time, and I would just type the name of the game followed by cheats, and like I'm sure there would be Gen Z kids out there that would relate to this, but it's like the first link would come up, you click on it, and you expect like a list full of cheats that you can input in the game, but it would just be the list of achievement and how to get the achievement, and it just annoys the hell out of me. I was just like, I don't care, man. I just wanted to live forever in the game.
This is
how Winston. No, I was going to say this is how Winston actually learned to speak such good English.
Yeah, I was googling.
I'm googling stuff because I'm pissed off at this game I'm playing, man. That's fantastic.
At YouTube tutorials.
Before we go on, do you remember the name of the game you're talking about?
The one with the
one with the timer? Yeah.
So it was something to. It was I don't remember the game. I could probably describe it to you. I remember it being a ride in the mall, and your character.
You look that up.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to find it real quick.
But this is a good generational gap thing then. So Winston's very used to get a new game, go online.
I will say I did look up some of the cheats for Angry Birds when I was playing that, but that's that sounds very boomer though.
Oh man. Yep.
So I think I might have found it.
I started off probably as you did, Brian. It was a lot of like schoolyard playground word of mouth, where it's just one that a lot of people mentioned. Yeah, a lot of people mentioned nobody ever told you. Everybody knew you had to blow in the cartridge, which, by the way, not good for the cartridge. But if your Nintendo cartridge didn't work, you put it in, or your Atari cartridge, you put it in, it didn't work, you took it out, you blew in it, you put it back in, it worked.
Yeah.
It corrodes them. Does not. But everybody knew that. It was not a written rule. Some kid somewhere did it, and it just got around.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So would you say it was like a placebo effect to like blow into it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or just, but the act of putting it in the one time, remove some of the gunk on the contacts, and then put it in the second time. That's like how it worked. But in our brains, we did that.
I was the in between. I remember, I don't know if any of you can relate to this, Scholastic book fairs.
Loved them
at school. I have hard copy books that I would buy once in a while that were just full of game codes.
What?
Yeah,
that's all it is. I'll see if I can pull one out here in a bit. But I've got books that were just printed. It's just like, all right, here's your section of Super Nintendo games listed alphabetically. Here's all the codes. Yep.
Because really,
it's cheats, or is it like codes to actually get the game? Like what's the code?
No, cheat codes. Cheat codes.
Cheat codes.
So you have
cheat codes started disappearing once games started going online.
Yeah.
And then it's to where it is now with modern game, where it's just like you could just set the story or the difficulty to story, where there's almost no game left, and it's just interacting through the story if you want to beat the game.
Yeah. And that's really funny because you said codes, and like in my Gen Z head, I immediately think of like
download codes,
redeemable codes, download codes, and it's like cheat codes. Just call it cheats. What's happening? Yeah. But I was able to find the game that I was trying to tell you about. So it is a Rockstar game. So the same people that made GTA or whatever. It's called State of Emergency. The plot is in 2023. Funny enough,
that's
now.
That's now.
Yeah. The United States government was weakened by the economic crisis. In response, the American Trade Organization, most commonly known as the Corporation, built a paramilitaristic force and overthrow the government, taking over the United States of America and establishing a corporate police state. Years later, in 2035, an underground resistance named Freedom began a campaign of resistance and soon sparked a national riot. So here in the game, all you would do is it's a beat 'em up video game is what it's described as. Each of the character has a different like weapon and stuff, and they have different backgrounds. So like one of them is an up and coming criminal attorney. Somebody is a cop and stuff like that. This other guy was an orphan in high school, and you would just
in high school? Not
yeah,
at the time.
no jobs. But yeah, it wasn't very well rated. People hated it. But all it is you get a little timer at the bottom right of your screen, and it's like you trying to do as much damage as you can, and yeah, that was the game. But I'm sure
what was it called?
State of Emergency.
It's probably very reminiscent of a lot of the old beat 'em ups, Streets of Rage, any of the Ninja Turtle arcade games.
Yeah, I would say so. Like especially the TNMT one. You won't believe it. I literally just Google it, and there's cheats for it. Where was this when I was 8? You can get an AK-47 by just inputting codes. This is terrible.
Install this toolbar, and we'll give you the secret code to get your,
But yeah, anyway, so that was my experience with like video games and stuff growing up.
Okay, so the cheat codes made me think about Napster. Obviously was long gone by the time you were in the downloading game. Yes.
What's Napster?
Perfect.
Maybe
are you kidding me? No, are you serious?
I'm serious. I don't know what Napster is. It could just be me. But I have zero idea what Napster is.
Okay, what if I say LimeWire? Does that ring?
I know.
Okay,
that was mine.
I was going to say there are a lot of memes dedicated to LimeWire and its effective virus downloading for your computer.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so wow, you don't know what Napster is. Okay, so back in the day, this kid created Napster, which allowed people to connect other people's computers, right, and download songs. It was kind of it was like
right?
It's peer-to-peer. Yeah, peer-to-peer sharing. This is way before BitTorrent. BitTorrent, I would almost argue was because peer-to-peer started getting closed in on. But yeah, so there was Napster was the first place that you could sort of like widespread peer-to-peer music. And so suddenly like people are downloading music everywhere online, and it's and like all of the regulatory people are like, whoa, what are we going to do about this? Like nobody saw this coming. And so like it completely freaked out the whole music ecosystem because suddenly people are just snatching music, and so there was like there was a lot of regulation, and there were a lot of ultimately it led, I think, to streaming. Streaming was the only way. They're like, okay, maybe if we can get people to pay for a little bit of music, we'll be able to recoup some royalties rather than just downloading stuff for free, because
So was Napster only for music, or did you bring this up because people were able to share game files between them too?
I was not into gaming at that time. So, but I mean, at that time, like once peer-to-peer took off, there was all sorts of file sharing. I mean, prior to that, there were like news groups where people posted stuff and you could download things.
There wasn't much to modding at that time. There was peer-to-peer with Napster or LimeWire was any type of file, although bandwidth was still shaky at that time. So music files were small enough to download. You probably weren't getting too many videos. Definitely probably not full-length movies, but maybe you were getting some ROM files that you could use on an emulator.
Right.
I mean, this took so like it would be just painstaking to try and sit through. Like you'd queue up an album to download. You'd wake up in the morning and be like, "Did I get it? Oh, damn it! It cut out at track 9. It dropped the connection to track 9. I'm missing 4 songs from that album or whatever." Yeah, it was.
And most of the tracks are Bill Clinton and not the music.
Yeah, I mean, just the file. There people did not have take pride in their file naming. I mean, stuff was mislabeled. There's an old tune by Steeler's Wheel called "Stuck in the Middle," and the dude kind of sounds like Bob Dylan, but like all over Napster, this was Bob Dylan, stuck in the middle with you, and like that's not Bob Dylan at all, So mislabeled files would then be copied and live on in perpetuity. Right. So yeah, it was the Wild West. But then the second iteration was LimeWire, what Tony was talking about. Second big iteration. I'm sure there were several.
So the LimeWire one was like, that's how I know of it. It's like through the memes like you mentioned, and like all I know of it was like it was the thing that give your computer AIDS. That's all I know of it.
It was it's very dangerous to use it because it was literally peer-to-peer. So you'd hope that whatever you were looking for, somebody else had and their computer was on, and they were doing what's called seeding, which meant people could connect to it to download it. But you were downloading the whole file from one person. Right. So you get one person that goes, this is what everybody's looking for. I can take this virus, label it as that. People are going to come get it.
Hey, it's Bob Dylan stuck in the middle with you. Yes. Just kidding. It's a Trojan, yeah.
And that's why torrents became a thing. Yeah. Not because the government was cracking down, but because it's safer to do that. Legality wise, it's still up in the air. But
I love that. It's like, I didn't share a file. I shared 6 bits from a file.
That's it. They come in packets. So a bunch of people will see it at once, and you're getting pieces from multiple people. It downloads faster.
I see.
And you're a little less likely to get a virus.
We've got tech nerds going, you guys are completely missing a lot of these technicalities. But
absolutely.
This is a layman's description of how it happens, or at least how I understand it to happen.
So this is really funny. I just Googled Napster, right? I was curious about it. I'm like, I wanted to see.
I love the fact that I actually didn't know. That's
It said Napster was a peer-to-peer file sharing application. It was originally launched on June 1st of 1999. Wow. 2 days after I was born, Brian. Of course I wasn't gonna know
it. Baby Winston, I need the files.
We're stuck in the middle by Bob Dylan.
Damn it, I hear that's Bob.
But yeah.
When did you get your first MP3 player, Brian?
Ooh. Well, it depends what you mean by MP3 player. I mean, the first one was on a computer, Winamp. Winamp was like, once we found Winamp, that was like the greatest music. I don't know why, but it was like the greatest music player. So that was like,
it had the visualizer.
It had the visualizer and it whipped the llama's ass. That was their motto, which I just can respect because it's ridiculous. So that was how, and then you would burn CDs or burn data CDs and you could play them like that. That was like the first thoughts of MP3 players, at least how I consumed them. And then, once I'm still a proud owner of what is now referred to as the iPod Classic, the old spin wheel. The thing is great, man. It's like, I thought like this. I remember when it came out thinking this is like a portable hard drive. I can throw everything on here and just access it. It blew my mind. That point, it was like I'm taking my music collection, shrinking it down, and having this huge amount of music that I can keep here. But once they paired it with the phone, you start thinking about it differently. It's like, oh, well, do I just stream that way? I don't have anything downloaded. Well, I want my running playlist on there because that's, I need that, with me. So it's just, it's changed. It's changed, but it's different, but it's still, it's still cool because you got the internet in your pocket.
Winston, first MP3 player.
So I was going to say I had an actual MP3 player as a hand-me-down from my sister, but I didn't have a iPod like ever. I remember seeing them and I'm like, that's freaking cool. I want one. I want to be able to spin the wheel, right? But I remember I had this super tiny little MP3 player, and I think I got it around 2008, 2009. And the only reason why I know that I got it around that time was because the very first track that I got installed, that I got downloaded and put into it was
I'm excited to hear what it is. What is it?
It was an AC/DC song from Iron Man, the very first Iron Man. I don't remember which one. Is it Back in Black?
Back in Black is a huge song, but I mean that was out way before that movie.
Yeah, but that's right,
awesome.
But I remember watching Iron Man. I'm like, that song bangs. So I was like, I gotta find out what it is. Again, putting together broken English. What's the song at the end of Iron Man? And it sure enough popped up on Google, and I was like, I gotta download it. But here's the thing: I was still in Vietnam at the time. I'm a kid, so like, the only way I could get music was through this website. It's like roughly translate to mymusic.net.com, whatever. And it was a super illegal like streaming site. It was super sketch. Everybody used it. It was never a real corporation. Nobody was paying people. Funny enough,
were they churning out viruses though, or no? It was actual music.
I mean, I don't know. I put it into MP3. Nothing ever happened. So
nice.
I guess not. But this is the weird part. It's super sidetracked. But I Googled the website just now to see if it's still up and whatnot. It's totally a huge corporation in Vietnam. It's like Spotify now. Like, it's super official. They got like different playlists. They got like all the big artists on here. But yeah, so I remember like I was like I somehow went on there and was able to find Back in Black by AC/DC, and that was like the first track I downloaded. All
right, yeah. So I have to ask. This is another good question.
Mm-hmm.
What is everybody's first music album? What was the first CD, first cassette, whatever? What was the first one? It doesn't matter whether you can decide whether it's the one that you bought or the one that you were given. What was your first album?
Are we talking physically or like
the first bit?
I think we're still all old enough to probably have gotten a physical one before we got something else. Okay,
you guys are old enough.
all right, proving me wrong. Winston.
So, man, I would say like I never got a physical album, but if we're talking digital, like the first album I ever downloaded, because this is when I officially like had my own like phone, or like actually I didn't even have a real iPhone at the time. I had an iPad, and the first album I ever downloaded like in full was it was Jay-Z 444 album that came out like in 2016-ish. Actually, I'm wrong. It's not Jay-Z. It's Kanye West's Life of Pablo. That was the first album I ever.
That was the first. Wow.
Yeah, that was the first one I ever got downloaded. Because before that, I'm poor. I'm a kid. I'm a student. I don't have money for Apple Music. So I was streaming stuff on YouTube or whatnot. But like the first one I downloaded was definitely Life of Pablo.
Like for you, that was your copy.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Right. The first physical one that I bought was a Twice album last year. Like that was like the first time I went and bought a physical album. Like,
okay, and that was more for the collector's piece of it. You're not like going, I'm starting my CD collection now.
What am I gonna put the CD in? It's not like a computer come with CDs reader or
that's true.
Disc reader or whatever.
That's true.
I mean, I'm sure I can probably put it in my car, but I'm like, why? I have it on my phone. So
right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so realistically, I didn't buy myself an album until last year. So there's that.
Oh my gosh, 2020. Tony, what about you?
Oh boy, I just looked mine up. 1999 CD
by Prince. That would be funny.
Christina Aguilera's self-titled album.
Wow.
With Genie in a Bottle.
I know it. Oh.
I was in middle school at the time. It was big, and I went, "She's hot," and that song's pretty good. I'll get that.
There you go. That's to marketing teams everywhere. If you're marketing to middle school boys, "She's hot."
It works.
That song's pretty good. I'll buy that album.
What do you think about Twice album, Brian? It's 9 attractive women on the cover. Come on,
right.
Oh yeah. What about you, Brian?
So this is, this just makes me feel ancient, but I believe I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know one of the first albums I bought was Michael Jackson's Thriller. I mean, that was,
wow.
Yeah, that was
album.
the year.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that was the year that Michael Jackson, was taking over the world. But I had definitely had that album and would sit, put it on the turntable, listening to vinyl when it was the only way before it was cool again. Um, and yeah, and just would listen to that album, and it had the lyrics. You'd open it up, it was Widegate, and you would read the lyrics, and that's how I know every song to every or every word to every song on that album.
Oh, there's lyrics in it.
Yeah,
to every single one.
Yeah, you'd flip it open and you read along as you put it on. You're like, okay, side 2, let me check this out. Yeah, and you
miss that.
Yeah.
So that's funny, because that's still a thing in K-pop. Like every single Twice album I bought, even like the non-Twice one, it would comes with a photo book. And in the photo book, as you're like looking at these super good looking women, there's lyrics that you could also read along with the songs. I guess people don't do that for albums anymore in the US, because like I was just explaining to you guys, like there's totally still a thing in Korean music, or especially K-pop. Because like
we're not turning this into a K-pop podcast, man. I'm sorry,
not,
I gotta put my foot down.
But I'm explaining it to you. Like this would be, obviously people can't see it, but this would be like a book, and you would have all the lyrics.
Yes.
So I'm like, that's
in Korean. So it's like it's learning a foreign language as well.
Right. But I'm just confused as to why they don't do that with American albums anymore.
It depends. If you get a CD and stuff, the album art and everything, that's still all in there.
Right.
As far as I know, I just bought the new Nickel Creek album.
Oh, you got it?
I did get it. And
nice. It's great.
Sure enough, it comes with a paper in there about the size of the slip cover. That front and back has the lyrics to all the songs. And I went, this is great. I sat and listened to the first side of one of the 2 albums, the LPs, and I was just like, I miss getting a new album and just sitting and reading along for the first time. It's great.
Super neat. Yeah.
It was, that's I think that's why part of the nostalgia, why the boom of vinyl's coming back, because when people would be like, hey, you want to come over to my house and listen to records? That's what people used to do. Like that was the goal.
That's hilarious.
That's awesome, man. You'd come over to somebody's house and you'd sit down and you'd put on a record and you're like, this is what we're doing. We're digging this right now. Right. And like, I loved that. And I still had a bit of that. You still had that. You still had a dedicated listen, but records were what made you sit down and really stop what you were doing and kind of do that. I'm definitely in the minority. Like, I don't think, I get it. Records have a warm tone and people love that sound, but I still think CDs sound more amazing and clear. But I'm not trying to change anybody's mind, but that's just kind of how I feel about it. But still sitting down and listening to a record, man, it's cool,
Yeah, no, that's super deep. But I just find the idea that you could tell somebody, hey, you want to come over and listen to some record? Like, that's hilarious, because like nobody would do that now.
That was not code for like Netflix and chill. That was like actually come over and listen to these records.
That was the only way you could listen to some music.
Yeah,
I mean, because they weren't playing all of it. You only had a few stations, and a lot of it was going to be like oldies, and maybe you'd have like a top 40 station that was playing pop stuff. But like, you want to listen to Pink Floyd or something, like some of the deep tracks. That was the only way you're doing it. Is you either had the album or you had a friend who had the album. You go listen to it.
That album came out 50 years ago, 1973. So, I mean, that's even older than me. And I thought about that the other day. I saw a thing about the anniversary reissue, and I was like, man, they just keep putting out this album, but it's a great album. And I was like 50 years old. So that was before my time, but still, but I can't tell you if I'm putting on Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon anytime just to kind of like, enjoy my Saturday. Probably not.
But I feel like because my generation kind of grow up with, like streaming being such a big thing, like vinyls kind of became sort of more of an aesthetic. Or Like, I don't think anybody like go out of their way and was like, oh, I'm only listening to vinyls only.
You're wrong. Those people are called hipsters.
You're right. That is, I guess there's a small like minority.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, I know at least a few people that bought vinyl without ever having a record player,
a turntable.
Yeah, when
I mean, they are cool pieces. I mean, that's part of the appeal is that it's a physical thing you can hold and look at, a representation of like this band that you dig. Right. That's cool. Do you have you listened to Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon?
No,
do you know what
I don't even know who Pink Floyd is. I know of Pink Floyd.
When I say that, do you know what I'm talking about? You've heard of that at least? That sounds familiar?
No. Hold on. Let me look up the album art. Maybe I
hold on. I was just going to say, I want to play the game of what do you think the album art looks like before you look it up. But
I do know. I've seen this. But
yeah, I would hope so. I mean, it's like an ingrained part of pop culture. But wow. So yeah, that was like I don't know. I don't want to say a rite of passage that puts too much emphasis on it, but it was like you listened to, you sat down and you listened to Dark Side of the Moon in its entirety. And if you even wanted to get really crazy, that you could sync it up with the Wizard of Oz. Tony nods. He knows of this. Okay. So
I knew exactly where you were going.
Wait,
yeah.
So
yeah. So, and I never did it, but I actually encountered a party where somebody had actually done it. Like I'd heard about it. So the thing was, if you started, correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, if this is going from a hazy memory, started the press play on the CD after. Okay. So you're playing Wizard of Oz, right? Got Wizard of Oz on your VCR and you're playing it along and you've got you got your CD player ready. On pause, ready to hit play for Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. After the MGM Lion roars the second time, the beginning of Wizard of Oz, you press play. And the story is that the album syncs up perfectly with what's going on in the movie.
Really?
Well, a lot of this is making the assumption that you're probably high while you're doing this. and I'm going to go ahead and make that leap of faith. But so I'd heard about this, never went about trying it myself, despite, liking and listening to a decent amount of Pink Floyd when I was in college. Went to a party and somebody's like, I've got a copy of this. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. So they put it in and sure enough, you start watching and you're like, and it's because your brain is always looking for connections, even if they're not there. And so you're watching this. And I think the biggest one is that, there's one line, which is which and who is who. And when they say which is which, that's when the witch appears. And then the big one is where it go. I'm going to reference the song and Winston's like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I have zero idea.
But anyway, there's this song, and like at the end of the song, a bunch of alarm clocks go off. It's the beginning of and that's when it goes into color, right? And it goes from the black and white to the color. You've seen the Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah.
I make that assumption. Okay, yeah. So, but this is getting a little long-winded. But anyway,
I've seen the new Wizard of Oz. I haven't seen the original one because again, this is like before my time.
Hold on, what new Wizard of Oz?
It was like the one with like James Franco a few years back. Is that not a thing?
Was that the Oz Great and Powerful? Or
yeah,
Oz that was
Great
just
and Powerful.
So you haven't seen the Wizard of Oz then?
Zach Braff was a monkey
the
in
Wizard
that one,
of Oz. I'm not gonna go out of my way to watch.
Okay,
Wizard of Oz.
so let me ask,
film.
Yeah, so let me ask you that. That's going back to the Pink Floyd thing. Where does I'm asking you as a generational spokesperson, where does your generation fall on like the classics or history or where this came from or where that came from? Like, that's what I feel like. Pink Floyd came out, Dark Side of the Moon came out before I was even born, but yet I know that album backwards and forwards.
Okay. So Wizard of Oz came out in 1939.
Right. That was way before my time. I know I'm old, but come on.
That's even way before my time.
But it's a classic and it's established classic.
That's not a classic to us. That's just an old people movie to us. Like we don't care about it enough to where we're like, oh, dude, we gotta watch Wizard of Oz. There's probably like one or two few kids that did grow up watching it. Because
some weird ass flying monkeys in that thing.
Their parents probably found a movie at the library and was like, oh, you gotta see it. It's Wizard of Oz. So, but it's referenced enough in popular, like in pop culture, like for us to know what it is. But if you tell me right now to like tell you what happened in Wizard of Oz, the only thing I can tell you is the house fell on somebody and their shoe was out. and I'll say this: the only reason why I know was because Phineas and Ferb did an episode on it.
Don't get me on a tangent about how much I love Phineas and Ferb.
Exactly.
Like my children and myself all know what an aglet is thanks to Phineas and Ferb. Exactly. I mean, I knew what one was, but I mean the fact that they can rattle off what an aglet is. But Phineas and Ferb is great, and so many references. Okay, that's totally interesting. But you don't care to go back and see it.
I don't. And realistically, the only time I watch. But here's the thing, though. I had a film degree in college, right? So I did have to watch a fair amount of old movies, and I hated all of them. It sucks. I can't say. Look at Tony is eyeing me right now.
It hurts my soul. It hurts my listen. Wizard of Oz is a lot older than I am too, but it's just like, I guess I see it for the classic that it is. Again, it's like, was it classic to me?
Yeah,
not necessarily, but even as a child, I went, hey, everybody knows this movie.
Right.
I should probably see it.
Yeah. So it's like
Casablanca.
Those flying monkeys freaked me right out.
But it's something like Casablanca or Jaws or
like those
Star Wars, where it's just like, hey, they're part of pop culture. I should probably have a better understanding of it, but that's just me.
But that's what I'll say though, because my generation, like if we count Gen Z, right, it's 98, 97 is even pushing 97 and older, or I mean 97. You keep going up in a few years, right? That's Gen Z. So to us, like the classic stuff is like Star Wars, and even then, that's pushing it. Only like there's Gen Z Star Wars fan, but like it's 1974, right? That's old. Like,
so they like the prequels better? Is that
I'm gonna correct you with 1977 for A New Hope. But sorry,
clearly I don't know. But
let me push up my glasses.
But I would say, like for me at least, I'm a prequel fans. Like I try to sit through the original trilogy.
I tried to sit through.
It's so hard. Like I understand it's essential to the story, but it's so hard for me because it was so theatric. It was like it's a space opera, right? Like that's what they call it. It's a space opera.
There was not a damn bit of singing. I was so disappointed.
but yeah, so like I watched it because it's Star Wars, but I didn't do the order of like, oh, you gotta watch the original trilogy, then you watch the prequel, then you watch the sequel. I watched it in order of how the story went. So maybe
the story went release date, or the story went numerically? Chronologically.
Yeah.
So you started with the prequel.
Yeah.
Episode 1.
Right. So I feel like even because of that might have set me up for failure, because I've seen the prequel. I'm like, oh, these effects are amazing. And then you get to like episode 4 where you get like Ben Kenobi and Vader just fighting each other like, two old men.
That's a solid argument. That's a solid argument against that. But I guess what people like, you're blasphemy. Yeah. Those are the originals. But yeah, so obviously being older, I saw them in the regular order.
Here's more blasphemy. You would think a person with a film degree had seen Jaws. I haven't seen Jaws. I've only heard of it. And I know the soundtrack, and that's it. That's
all right. What's the name of the shark? You got to know the name of the shark in Jaws.
Jaws? I don't know.
All right, hold on. Do you know the name of the shark from Finding Nemo?
There you go. It's homage.
Oh crap!
Hello.
I don't remember. Is it?
Fish are all friends.
Yeah, I know fish are friends, not food or whatever, but I don't know the name of him. Is it Razor? I don't know, something like that, right?
Bruce. It's Bruce.
It's Bruce.
It's
Bruce.
Oh, I'm Bruce.
There you go. What a stupid name for a shark.
And was that the name of the shark from Jaws also?
Yes, they named the mechanical shark that kept breaking down often Bruce, not Jaws.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's hilarious. Yeah. So like those movies are old. But I'll tell you movies that are old that I know my generation at least enjoy it. Definitely Scarface, Pulp Fiction. Those two are like
Pulp Fiction's a masterpiece. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Good.
Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like those are the type of movie that my generation would consider classic.
2 Tarantino films. Yeah.
Well, no. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, no. Those are great films. But yeah, that's interesting though. Yeah. The
Space Odyssey. Space Odyssey is another classic.
2001, right? Stanley Kubrick.
Yes, Kubrick. Same with The Shining. Those are classics. Those are what, like, 70s and above are what we consider classic.
See, that blows my mind that you're going, 2001 was great, but Star Wars was not. 2001 so rudimentary.
I haven't seen 2001 either. I'm just saying that's what people in my generation consider
Gotcha.
classic.
I hear there's other people that watch that. That shit looks boring as hell.
Exactly. But listen, Scarface is what I like. I really enjoy Scarface. Yeah. But that was also 71 or something like that. I could totally be wrong though.
You're totally wrong. I think Scarface was the 80s. But I like movies, but I'm not a film buff by any means.
Yeah, it's 83, but you're right.
Okay, yeah.
Everything is 71 in Winston's mind. It's okay.
The ancient times.
Yeah.
But we're coming up on time here, so I'm gonna
wrap
us
good,
here.
right? Isn't that good? Rather than us like sitting here going, "Hey, so Winston, why do you got a scrunchie on your mic boom?" Oh no, that's another episode.
Yeah, that is another episode. That is a topic for a different episode. But
yeah, and the fact that the Sexy Time Love Den looks like the cover of a Maroon 5 album, but that's something else I'll have to bring a visual aid for.
All right. Tony,
well, thanks everyone for listening. Yep. Please rate and subscribe so you don't miss new episodes. If you want to have us talk about anything, you can email us at podcastxyzwhy@gmail.com. Visit us on Instagram at xyzpodcast, and eventually we'll have our website up and running, which is xyzpodcast.podbean.com. And again, all of those are XWHY, the letter Z.
Let us know what you think.
All right.
All right.
Until next time, guys.